So what do you currently see in the economy? Has it changed since we last spoke 6 months ago?
Well, it's definitely continued to slow. There was a period of real exuberance coming out of the presidential election. In fact, if you look at the revisions to non-farm payrolls that we've now got through the end of 2024, it looks like net job losses began sometime in the second quarter of 2024. And then the layoff cycle kind of ebbed for a few months coming out immediately after the presidential elections in November. And then it looks like the economy slipped right back into recession at the beginning of 2025 with the resumption of private sector job cuts. I mean, there have been about 260,000 or so in the public sector in the United States on top of that. And, I think one of the other things that really has changed in the last 6 months is that it's pretty apparent the rest of the world is right there with us. The only thing that differentiates the United States is our central bank does nothing about it.
Yeah, that'd be a great place to maybe go to, because I think the ECB, we're recording on the 5th of June, they've just cut, Bank of England have been cutting, basically every central bank have been cutting, maybe except for the BOJ. They're very unique. But the Fed have decided to stand still despite all this data. What, do you buy their thoughts of tariffs and uncertainty, or what are they doing?
No, I don't buy what they're saying about tariffs. And you know what, the thing is, I don't think they buy it either. For the December FOMC meeting of 2024, I think it was December the 18th, maybe, on that same day, the Federal Reserve released the transcripts from the meetings held in the year 2019. And so it was a really unique prism into kind of the year that followed the beginning of Trade War 1.0 in 2018. It feels like a lifetime ago at this point, but it was April of that year, I think April of 2018, that Trump sent out the first tweet at the time, basically launching a trade war with China. And what the Fed discovered 1 year later was, in fact, the CPI had fallen. It was, I believe, 2.4% in 2018. And by the end of 2019, it was 1.8%. So we actually saw inflation decline, and the Fed discovered that the bigger economic impulse, if you will, was the slowing in global trade that was causing layoffs and a slowdown in economic output, and that was the greater force on the American economy. So the Fed knows that tariffs slow down trade to a greater extent. And if you look at real-time economic indicators, even all the way to super core inflation, which Jay Powell created out of thin air a few years ago, and that is services inflation net of energy, food, housing, I want to say, but it's a pure read on services inflation. And we just got the first negative print in years. The pandemic notwithstanding, we just got the first negative print since the Great Recession of 2007, 2009. And so the Fed is seeing, in no uncertain terms, with home prices turning negative month over month, S&P, Case-Shiller, as well as FHFA, they both saw home prices decline month over month in March. Shelter's the largest input to the CPI. So we're seeing disinflationary forces take hold, and yet the Fed is standing pat saying we better be vigilant about fighting inflation just in case, while Rome is burning, while layoffs are increasing, while most Americans anticipate rising unemployment in the coming years, and CEOs and CFOs are absolutely sitting on their hands and either firing people or delaying capital expenditure plans. So these are all hallmarks of recession, and they're universally being ignored right now by Jay Powell and Federal Reserve officials.